All right, hello. This might be a little bit different of a video that I normally do on this channel, but I wanted to share a little bit about how I got interested in psychedelic medicines in the first place. As you might be aware, I'm a pharmacist by training, and I've been working in the pharmaceutical space for about 9 years now. To start this off, why did I even do pharmacy in the first place? As with many brown kids growing up in America from immigrant parents, there was always a sort of pressure to do something that was stable as a career, something a little bit more STEM oriented, and naturally being pretty good at math and science, thankfully to Kumon, I ended up trying to figure out something that matched with my interests. And at the time, this was high school, I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do. And I had a few uncles and aunts, as well as my sister, that ended up pursuing pharmacy. Never did a rotation or anything like that, but decided that if I can get into a direct 6-year program right out of high school, it'd be a 6-figure income. Why not? Let's do it. And went to Rutgers University, made a lot of friends, had a lot of good experiences. And yeah, that's really the reason why I ended up doing pharmacy. You know, I know I wanted to help people. I thought about being a PA, a nurse anesthetist. Doctor really wasn't something in my radar because I just figured it was way too many years of school. And actually, during pharmacy school, I remember doing my first rotation at a CVS. It was around my 3rd or 4th year, and realizing right there that I don't know if this is something that I can get behind. It really felt like it was just counting pills, and often encountering a lot of people that are coming into the pharmacy that are never really happy about wanting to come to a pharmacy. It was more so people that would blame you for the price of their medication, as well as the actual job itself, where it just counting in 5s and 10s so I can fill up their prescription bottle. And it didn't feel right to me. Thankfully, I ended up having an older student / friend that told me about this opportunity to work in pharma. I didn't really know that you could work in pharma with your PharmD degree. I thought it was just either in a pharmacy, whether it's at a retail or an independent pharmacy, and on the other side of that, you could work in the hospital as a clinical pharmacist. I didn't really enjoy being in the hospital setting, so once I found out about this pharma side of things, I ended up getting a summer internship in New York and working at a pharmaceutical advertising agency. And from there, I realized, wow, this is actually something sort of fun. It was something new every single day. It was a little bit less pharmacy, science heavy. And I enjoyed that. I liked that. After pharmacy school, I ended up doing a 2-year pharmacy fellowship with Sanofi Genzyme. After that, I got the holy grail, as one would call it, for the role that I was looking for, and that was called the medical science liaison role. And this role was a lot of travel. I had the opportunity to go to Greece, to go to Lisbon, go to Brussels, eating escargot on company dime, going to countless welcome events that included good food and good drinks. And so I got my 6-figure job. I was traveling all around the world. I was doing something that I thought was it for me. I had touched what I had been wanting to do since pharmacy school, and which that was this medical science liaison role. And I've come to a certain point where when you work in the pharmaceutical industry, you get a peek behind the curtain of how this interplay works between insurance companies, pharmaceutical companies, clinicians, and things started to not feel as right as I had hoped. I started to question whether was this what I really wanted to do. It started to feel more so like a business instead of this idea of helping people. And I started to get worried. I wasn't sure what I was exactly doing anymore. There was this sense of fulfillment that did not exist with what I was doing. Was what I was doing worth like these United points and Marriott points that I was accumulating? It felt like I was, in a sense, kind of like a ghost in the shell. And then it was around 2019 that I first came across the Johns Hopkins study looking at people with terminal cancer and their anxiety about death. And in this trial, it was people that were dosed with 1 dose of psilocybin. And I remember thinking, you know, anxiety about death from a terminal cancer is not something that is easy to just let go. But in this trial, over 80% of the patients, their anxiety about death just went away. And I was like, what? Like, 1 dose? I was coming from pharma where a lot of times these medications are given every single day. You know, as a medical science liaison, you're, you know, pretty much on a day-to-day basis, you're looking at clinical trials with a critical eye, right? Not all clinical trials are created the same, so it's important to be able to recognize these and identify some of the shortcomings of trials, as well as acknowledging where the highlights of the trial are as well. I'm very thankful. Some of the clinicians that I had been speaking to for my role at the time, I was working in neurology, and they had been a little bit more acquainted with some of the clinical trials. I had actually one clinician in general, shout out to that clinician in Grand Junction, Colorado. She opened my eyes to psychedelic medicines and really start that conversation for me. And also, synchronistically, it was around this time that a friend of mine gave me the book How to Change Your Mind by Michael Pollan. If you're not familiar, it's a sort of a prolific writer. He started off more so talking about food, but eventually found himself talking about psychedelic medicines and was able to put his experiences in such a unique way that honestly, it was the first book for me since Harry Potter 7 that was a page turner where I just wanted to keep reading. And this is also where I learned about the history of psychedelics in the States. You know, I always heard about the psychedelic 60s, didn't really know what that entailed. I knew friends in pharmacy school ended up experimenting with psychedelics, but I think the propaganda growing up really got to me, so I just kind of stayed away. But this trial and this book just piqued my interest like no other. It was around the beginning of 2019 where I knew sometime in May or June that I'd be going to Brussels for work. So I decided that I was going to give myself those 6 months to kind of learn as much as I could about psychedelic medicines. And right after going to Brussels, I would go to Amsterdam and have my own psychedelic experience with psilocybin. I felt a little bit more comfortable going to Amsterdam because it felt not as sketchy in a way, because you can go to different smart shops and just buy psilocybin as you can in the States here with a cannabis dispensary. One of the most interesting reasons why I wanted to explore this was, you know, in the trials, the way they measured it was based on this mystical questionnaire. And for me, I was like, what the hell does it even mean to have a mystical experience? So I went to Amsterdam, had my own experience, and I just don't really have any words. I have some words. I didn't know what was happening in here, but I knew that it was the first time that I felt in healthcare that this was going to be something that helps so many people. I didn't know how this was going to happen, but I knew that this was something very different than traditional medications. And it was the first time that I finally felt thankful to have done pharmacy or pursued healthcare in the first place, because I wanted to be part of the conversation, and I wanted to do something with my life that would help people in a way that actually felt like you were addressing the root cause of certain issues. Now, I got back from Amsterdam, and I was very rejuvenated in terms of figuring out, okay, how do I get in this space? And it was a little challenging because at the time, most of the people involved in psychedelic research were either PhD researchers or prescribers like MDs and DOs that were able to actually prescribe this, because yet again, it's a DEA Schedule 1 drug. Also, I found that a lot of the people that were a little bit more familiar and were involved were people that were mental health professionals, such as social workers or licensed therapists. So I didn't really know what to do or how to get involved, but I just started researching, seeing what I can do. I ended up finding this psychedelic assisted research and therapy program with CIIS, and everyone that graduated with this degree, at the time, it was still very much gray area. We didn't really know what you'd be able to do. There were some states that were slowly decriminalizing these medicines, but it was still very hazy on, if you do this program, will there be anything to come out of it? And I didn't know if they would take a pharmacist at the time. I didn't stop, I didn't give up. And after applying, I ended up being the second pharmacist to be able to go through that CIIS program. And personally, it was very challenging for me to talk to my parents about this, because, you know, for them, if something is a drug, then drugs are bad. All drugs are bad. If it's illegal, there's no use to it. They didn't understand what happened in the 60s. They didn't understand that over 1,000 clinical trials that were done in the 60s, over 40,000 patients were dosed with LSD. Granted, they were not all well-designed trials, but it's more to show how many people were exposed to these, in a sense. And it's 2025, they still don't really understand, and that's something that I'm trying to work on, which is one of the reasons why I'm trying to make this video right now. Since then, I decided that, you know, if I was gonna still work in pharma, but I wanted to kind of get interested in this psychedelic space, it would probably be better if I joined a company that was more psychiatry focused, because I figured that the clinicians that are interested in psychedelics would most likely be psychiatrists. So I ended up working for a company that was addressing postpartum depression. And through this job, I was able to interact with a number of clinicians that were interested and had an understanding about psychedelic medicines. This past summer, my company was bought out, so I did have the choice to join the new company as a medical science liaison or take my severance. And for now, I ended up taking the severance to give myself a little bit of time to figure out what my next steps are. Do a little bit of traveling. Right now, I am in the Amazon, in Peru, where I'm helping out with an ayahuasca retreat center, working on a little bit of a creative project, but also doing my own work as well. Earlier this year, I became a licensed psilocybin facilitator in the state of Oregon, and trying to also see where that might take me as well. I know this is a little bit different of a video than some of the other videos on my channel, but figured, you know, it's about to be 2026. It's time to be authentic, and I'll still be making videos on different companies that are bringing psychedelic medicines through the FDA, because As I've said before, I take a page out of Rick Doblin's book where he says, you know, it is a good thing that both states are enacting regulations to slowly open up psychedelic medicines for people, such as Oregon and Colorado, New Mexico, but also these private companies that are looking to bring a product to market, because that's the only way that insurance companies will pay for this and decreasing the burden on the patient. If you're seeing this, just want to wish you a happy 2026. Let's hope that the future is bright for psychedelics. And if you have any questions, please reach out, leave a comment on the video. I'd love to hear about your psychedelic experiences or how you've seen it help, but also, you know, how you've seen it present challenges. You know, these are not going to be miracle cures. It requires dedication and consistent integration, but it is a step in the right direction. And I do hope more people, at the very least, educate themselves on what these medicines have to offer. So, yeah, thank you.